Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, your host, and today I'm here with Angela Fowler. And she is legally blind, totally blind is what she'd say, but she is a coach and she knows how to get you where you want to be. And so, huge inspiration to me. I'm excited to have her on. But Angela, without further ado, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Well, hello everybody. I'm Angela Fowler and I am totally blind. Can't see a doggone thing, never could. Easy to explain that way. And I'm an accessibility coach. So basically, I teach businesses, entrepreneurs, how to make their products and services accessible to people with disabilities, with all disabilities. And it turns out when you do that, you actually make your products and services more user-friendly for everybody and ultimately make more money, which in turn makes everybody involved happy.
Fantastic. Well said. So, my question is, how did you get started into this?
Well, I wanted to be part of the solution to a problem that's been frustrating me all my life. My background is in technology. I mean, obviously, I don't, I don't use a wheelchair, so, built environment type stuff doesn't impact me as much. Although I would prefer that overhanging tree branches be trimmed because getting hit in the face with a wet tree branch really sucks.
Ouch.
There was a study in The Onion recently that confirmed this. So, but the thing that affected me the most was the digital accessibility. So the way that blind people use computers is we use a thing called a screen reader, which is a piece of software that quite literally reads the screen. So as you go through the screen, it will tell us what we're interacting with. And in order to use the screen reader, you have to use a keyboard because using the mouse requires such a finite movement that you really do need to be able to see to use it because you don't know where it's at. I tend to move my mouse in increments of inches, and so the mouse runs away. It flees with me in hot pursuit, which does not constitute getting things done. So we use a keyboard and we use the screen reader. So the websites and anything that you use on the computer, like your applications, your Microsoft Word, if you're a PC user, your email client, whatever the thing is, needs to be built so that it can be used by a keyboard and things can be understood with a screen reader. So, in very simple terms, if you can use a keyboard to access all the things and interact with them, and if all the things are labeled in such a way that the screen reader will tell you what they are. Now, obviously, there's a lot more to it, but these are the basic goals that you want to achieve.
I didn't even think about that, to be honest with you, because you do. I take my sight for granted, obviously. And so you sit
Mhm.
down, you grab your mouse, and if it's not hooked up, I'm like, why isn't it working? Quickly can decipher that. But to be able to then go on your desktop and go through all of the thumbnails and things that are on there, sometimes three deep, until I delete. Like, yeah, I would never even thought of that would be a challenge unless you have some type of software that can help you through that.
Well, and we have shortcuts. For example, if you hit Windows key M,
Hmm.
take you to the desktop, and if you hit the first letter of whatever you want, it will jump between things which start with that letter.
Well,
You can also hit Control Escape to access the search box and then just type in, for example, if I type in Word, Microsoft Word will come up. So there's things that sighted people can do using the keyboard that are a heck of a lot more efficient than using a mouse sometimes.
right. So how many people have a disability?
It's about 25% of the population, give or take.
I would never have thought it was that high.
A lot of people don't. A lot of people don't. And part of the reason, there's a number of reasons behind that. Nobody wants to be the one that's different.
Mhm.
Um, the older I get, the less I care. I'm different.
I think we're
I'm
all like that.
blind, and I'm also a little weird. And you know what? If you don't like it, It's a free country. You have a right to your own opinion. Um,
Oh, it's a great attitude. I'm actually adopting it too. Does it take us so much longer? Wait till we
what?
get to adulthood to care, right? Or not?
Because society strives for sameness. Everybody wants to fit in. We're social
Mhm.
creatures. Everybody wants to fit in. And if you're a blind child growing up and going to school with a bunch of sighted kids, for
Mhm.
example, and you're not taught, hey, it's okay to be blind. It's cool to be blind.
Mhm.
There is absolutely nothing wrong with being blind. Read that Braille. But instead you're taught, oh, you can't, you need to read print because that's what the normal kids do.
Mhm.
You're gonna grow up not being okay with who you are.
Right.
And that to me is heartbreaking.
Mhm. I had interviewed somebody once, and she didn't even know till she said she was in fourth grade that she had a disability,
Mhm.
and clearly she did. And it was very interesting because I think we kind of tiptoe around it. And I got to be honest, when I first logged in and we were talking, I asked a simple question: Would you like it video or not video? And your response reassured me, right? Because you never want to offend, you don't want to do anything bad, but you're like, I don't care. We can have either one. And so
Well,
that's how you
and
keep
it yeah,
yourself.
and
What?
it turned out you couldn't see me because, Miss Brilliance here forgot to turn her camera on.
Right.
Which is very handy information to have if I want to present myself visually.
Right.
It is very helpful to know when my visual presentation stinks.
Right.
Like when half my head's cut off.
Well, and we're missing your chin right now anyway, so it's there
I
we
don't even, it,
it's okay.
it's tough.
You're
It's
good.
tough.
You're great.
It's it's fun when you can't see yourself on the monitor. It can be a challenge, and the key is to set up your camera
Right.
and not move it. Once you get that camera set up a certain way, and I do, my son is actually really helpful. He's um he did some YouTube work when he was younger, and he's edited videos for me and things like that. So he's really helpful in helping me set up my visual presentation and troubleshooting. One time I had a podcast interview and my microphone wasn't working.
Mm.
And we tried everything. Literally everything, software wise. And finally I called my son in out of desperation. Turns out somehow the microphone volume got turned way down.
Oh, that was it. Simple.
No idea how that happened. I'm blaming the cats.
Yes, I would too.
It has to be them. They conspired
Mhm.
to mess with me.
So with your business, if 25% of the people are disabled, then really it would be, I don't want to use the word stupid, but I'm going to use the word stupid. My daughter's like,
You
Mom,
can use whatever word you want. I don't care.
but it would be ridiculous not to invest in software and programming that can be used by everybody. Like a great example, I'm losing my eyesight. That's why I usually wear glasses. So
Hmm.
I can actually see you today, but that's rare. Sometimes it's very blurry. And so I feel like I'm staring at a screen and I don't really see somebody. So I wear glasses. But then if you wear the glasses, you have a glare on your face. And so it's like, I don't know which way is better. And so for
You
me,
can't win.
I know, right. But the software, some people, yeah, I do have sight and I think it's not that bad, but it's progressively getting worse as I get older. And so people
Mm,
like me even, it would be great to be able to not have to worry about using a mouse all the time.
Well, and I think if more sighted people were aware of screen readers and what they can do with screen readers,
Mhm.
there would be more sighted people using them. So,
Right.
say, for example, you describe your situation. I imagine big old long blocks of text
Right.
are challenging.
Oh, unless I have my now
Unless you have the glasses, right? But then sometimes your eyes get tired.
right. Yep.
Um,
Mhm.
so what I've seen people do is they'll take a screen reader and they'll find a voice that they like,
Mhm.
and they'll put the screen reader, focus at the top of the document, hit the command to read, and have it actually read to them.
I like that.
Now, that's especially helpful if you're an auditory learner. If you're not an I've heard people say, I could never do that. It would just be like wah, 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 wah. But if you're an auditory learner, that
Mhm.
could be a pretty tremendous life hack for you.
That is so true because I think, I mean, just like in school, don't get me started, but we're taught to learn from the pre-industrial era where you sit down, you shut up, and you look straight ahead. And most kids right now, today, they are not like that. Like my daughter and my husband were watching a movie last night, and halfway through, she got up and started hitting a balloon. And she was
Yeah.
still watching the movie, but she wanted to not just sit there. And he's like,
Mhm.
stop that. And I'm like, she's the type, she's kinesthetic. She has to be moving, she has to be learning, and just making her sit there is not what she wants.
My my aunt, my Auntie Billy,
Hmm.
God rest her soul. She was a first grade teacher for decades.
Hmm.
And one year she had a class of very hyper, energetic, delightful boys who could not sit still for an entire day of lesson. So they couldn't do it. So
Hmm.
what she finally ended up doing was taking them out and having them run laps around the track for an hour every afternoon. Or, maybe not an hour, maybe a half hour. I can't remember what the
Hmm.
time frame was, but she got them good and tired. And she took them back in and they were able to focus for the rest of the day. Now the eighth grade teacher sort of kidded her about it, right? He thought it was funny. Well, fast forward ahead 7 years, she looks out of her classroom and she sees that same eighth grade teacher with that same group of boys running around the track.
That's great. That's
And I just thank goodness it's a small school. Maybe you had more leeway in terms of being able to break with the traditional sit still for 800 hours a day and concentrate on stuff you
not
don't
interesting.
understand and at the moment probably don't care about. But yeah, our education system tries to hammer square pegs into round holes, and we are really underselling ourselves as a society.
Well, think, and not you, but our listeners, think about the last time that you walked up to a door that was quite heavy. I've had shoulder surgery multiple times. That little
Mhm.
handicap button that opens the door automatically, I use as much as I can, not because I'm lazy, but because my body
It's
hurts.
yeah, yeah, because it's easier
Yeah.
um on your shoulder because the cumulative
Mhm.
impacts of pushing those doors open,
Or pulling.
the the door to my gym contributes to my workout. It does.
It's
It
that's
and they say, "Oh, it's a gym." But people come to have things. Maybe they're just having an injury, this and this. So, you know, it's important to think of accessibility even in areas where you might not think of accessibility.
so when you're working with your clients, what are some other ways? Obviously, the screen readers. When people work with you, are they surprised, like, oh, I never thought about that, or I didn't know about that, or why do we have to? Are there some things that we're unaware of that we should be aware of?
The things that I find myself, people just don't know. The disability community is like every other civil rights community. We have this habit of assuming bad faith.
Hmm.
When the truth is that the overwhelming majority of time, the reason things are accessible is because people just don't know. Because we as a community are not doing a good job of educating. We have a serious marketing problem masquerading as systemic oppression. Nobody's out to get blindy. People
Right.
just don't know.
Yeah.
You know, if somebody doesn't know what a screen reader is, and most people don't know what a screen reader is,
Hmm.
how the heck are they supposed to know to build their products and services such that a screen reader can use them?
Hmm. Interesting.
So my first job is to educate, not only about accessibility, but excuse me, but about disability because society underestimates what we're capable of. And yes, disability does limit us in some areas. When I put in my application, for my CDL so I could drive a semi truck, they laughed at me. I wonder why that could be.
Hmm.
But
Fearless
there's
boy.
nothing like a good counterexample to distract us from the big picture, right?
Right.
Overall, society greatly underestimates what with disabilities are capable of, to the detriment of all of us. In order to educate about accessibility, I first need to impress upon people that people with disabilities are your neighbors, your employees, your bosses. The images that you see in popular culture of the person with a disability being basically incapable of doing much of anything
Mhm.
are but a sliver of the true picture of disability.
Right. So when you say 25% of the population is disabled, who is included
Yeah,
in
all
the,
disabilities. So you got visual, hearing, motor disabilities,
okay,
which, believe it or not, some people with motor disabilities who can't use a mouse benefit from keyboard accessibility.
right. Yeah.
If you are if your arms are paralyzed, if you can't move your arms,
Mhm.
you use a have you heard of Dragon naturally speaking? You
Okay.
literally tell your
Mhm.
computer what to do.
Right.
And Dragon reads the screen, the whatever you're trying to do in a similar way as the screen reader does.
Okay. So screen reader, getting back to my question, that this you have your screen reader. Are there other things that employers should be aware of?
Yeah, so make sure that color contrast is good.
Wow.
Um, make sure that things are laid out intuitively, consistently. Don't make me hunt for the add to cart button.
Uh, yeah, again, I never even thought of that because scrolling on Amazon, you don't get to see what things look like. You just have to listen to the description. And so if they're not describing it in such a way that answers your questions, that makes it difficult. Never
And
even thought about that.
some things it's self-explanatory. Sometimes you want a specific thing, so you research for that specific thing. But I was buying a washer dryer set a while back, and obviously I wanted something that was accessible, but
Mhm.
I couldn't tell what models were accessible and what weren't. So I just in major purchases like that, I delegate to my son.
Okay.
Because he knows what something needs to be accessible. Even if you got to put a couple pieces of tape on things, right? You can make it accessible. And
Um,
the product descriptions just aren't adequate.
yeah, again, that's great information. I love that you are
Hi to
doing.
everyone. Takeaways from the meeting. White right pointing backhand index speech balloon discuss house.
See, you have your screen reader. I love
Just
that you're doing that to help other people and to help us, quite frankly, so that we can have better businesses and we can help the 25% of the population that is being left out. So I want to
absolutely.
switch gears for a minute because you are a mom. You talked about how you have a son. Um, I want you to imagine yourself sitting on a park bench and you are just enjoying the breeze and the sun on your face, and a, a 9 month pregnant woman sits next to you and you start having a conversation with her. What is one piece of advice? Now, this is a new mom, so think the gamut because your son's 18. What is one piece of advice that you would give a new mom?
Set reasonable boundaries when they're young.
Mhm.
Um, because it gets a lot harder as they get older. I'd also say they're going to test you.
Mhm.
They're going to do exactly the opposite, especially when they get to be teenagers. They're going to do exactly the opposite of what you've always raised them to do. Be firm, be kind, be patient, and ride that tide out because eventually they're going to come back. If you stand firm, if you guide them with, and try to keep your emotions out of it, hard as it is. When parents react emotionally to what their kids do, that is never a good outcome.
No, that's a really good point. It's 29 degrees here today where I live. And my daughter has been wearing shorts because it gets to about 50. Well, today I said, I don't recommend it. It's pretty cold out and it's only going to get to about 40. Now, last night I had her set her clothes out. I failed to check the weather. And so today I'm like, I really think that you should wear pants. You're probably going to get cold. Now, I forgot that she wears knee-high socks and she wears boots. And so I thought, okay. And we had this conversation and I thought, you know what? you can learn the hard way. And if you get cold, don't complain. Don't call me to ask for pants or anything. And so I think sometimes we have to pick our battles, but you're 100% right. They do start to test your boundaries. They do see. And there was a Facebook group recently where this mom said, my 22-year-old is coming home with his girlfriend. Am I out of line to ask him to sleep in separate rooms? And you should have seen the comments going back and forth that, quite frankly, I was shocked and saddened. But it's her home.
It's your own house.
Now she's put in a position. Why is the son even putting her in that position? If he respects his mom, if he cares about his mom, and why is this a thing that has to? And honestly, I had that conversation and inner debate with myself with my son once about something. And I thought, wow, I have younger kids. I'm going to instill my boundaries. And somebody said in there, well, if you're going to be all strict, and this wasn't to me, this was to her, but if you're going to be strict and he's just never going to come visit you then. I thought, wow, how sad that she has to give in to her values and morals because of how the son might react. At what point did we change as a society where the spoiled little kids get what they want or they're not going to come see their parents? What?
And what does that teach them?
Exactly.
That teaches them that they're going to get, that all they got to do is throw a fit to get what they want. And eventually they're going to get knocked on their backside.
100%. And it's hard to watch, but it's better that you teach them young. So I agree.
I wish I'd been not strict per se, but I wish I'd had solid boundaries for my son when he was younger. It would have made the middle school years a lot easier.
Yeah, woulda, coulda, shoulda. But you did
Yeah.
the best you could with what you had at the time. So
I mean, he's turning out pretty good, so I must have done something right. But his parents, I don't think we're ever sure that we did the right thing, even when our kids turn out good.
right. It's hard, but he's getting married, right? So congratulations.
You know, they are in conversation with their church and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. I was never religious necessarily, but my son is turning to religion to guide him through his own life. So, you know, I consider that a good thing.
Yeah, you did a good job. So congratulations. Well, how would our listeners find you if they wanted to get a hold of you?
Go to www.reallifeaccess.com and you can find all the things. My contact form, my socials, my YouTube channel, a bunch of other stuff.
Which is also on the screen that we can see right now too with your little logo. So that's great.
Awesome.
Well, Angela, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been a fun conversation.
It has, definitely. And Unbreakable Mompreneurs, I hope that you took some gold nuggets today. Specifically, think about the people that might not be exactly like you, that might be a tad bit different and need a few extra steps that you might have overlooked because you're leaving out a pretty large population, 25%. That's really large. And so your business can thrive even more if you reach out to someone like Angela and ask for her advice. And also, as a mom, give yourself a break and set those boundaries. So go out and make it a great day. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.